Welcome to the Learning Lab. My name is Roman Garcia. What we're going to be discussing today is about chronic pain and some things that you can do in order for you not to be a victim of this phenomenon that is spreading across the United States. The other day I was reading an article on a newspaper, and they were discussing how many people in the United States have chronic pain. Now, Carlos, if you can focus in over here on this article. This is the article. This is just the front page of the article. Now, the article reports that 11% of Americans have chronic pain. That's probably anywhere in the vicinity of 20 million to 30 million. Almost half of the American populations report pain being with them for at least 3 months. So if you're an American, chances are that you will develop pain somewhere in your body that just does not seem to go away. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you, or we're going to be discussing, a simple stretching maneuver, if you want to call it a stretching maneuver, I like better to describe it as a maneuver, and not necessarily a stretching maneuver, though it has the same effect as a stretch does. Now, before I show you what that maneuver is, we have to understand that first that chronic pains or pains that last for a very long time usually afflicts certain parts of the body with more propensities than others do. Now, cervical pains or pain around the shoulder area is one of the regions that a lot of folks experience pains throughout their lives, or will experience pains throughout their lives. And it's a pain that just does not seem to go away. Even though you use the more standard stretching protocols that exist today out in the public domain or in the rehab domain, the pain just does not seem to go away. And there's a reason. I'll have a theory of why that is so, that standard traditional stretching exercises do not work when your pain is in the cervical region. But before I explain to you the biology or the maneuver itself so you can see it yourself, you have to understand first a little bit about biology and how muscles contract. Now, I set up a little, not an experiment, but a demonstration, so I can illustrate, so you can see how a muscle functions in the human body. Now, before I do that, I want to go over a simple schematic that I wrote out here of why I think the traditional stretching exercises do not work. Now, the problem that I feel, the fundamental problem is that most of the stretching exercises that exist for stretching in the cervical regions or the muscles around the neck is that because most stretching exercises are formulated or constructed at this level, at the tissue level. Most exercise are. When an exercise stretch is developed, the developer of that stretch is thinking from the tissue up to the system level. Now, what I mean by this is simple. You can break up the human body into different levels of organization. At the highest level is the system. When I say system, what I'm referring to is the whole body. You're thinking of the body as a whole. The next lower level is the organ. At the organ level, what I mean by this is that we're referring to solid structures that make up the system: the lungs, the heart, the bones, etc. At the tissue level, the level below the organ level, we're referring to the matter that makes up the organ. Now, at the tissue level, there are many tissues that make up an organ. So, for example, when we're thinking of the musculoskeletal area, when we describe it as the tissue, we're talking about one specific muscle of a group of muscles that make up a particular region in the human body. Most stretching exercises are designed to stimulate the muscles or the body at the tissue level. The problem with that thinking is that we have gotten stuck at this level for decades. Most of the stretching that are being recommended in all the public domains do not go beyond the tissue level. And the reason being is that most of our training in school is at the tissue level. We don't go below that. But for a maneuver to be effective, you have to go below the tissue level. You have to start thinking at the molecule levels, the molecules that combine to make up the tissues themselves. And at this level, you got the macro level, which is several molecules combining to make up a large piece of matter or a large region of matter. And then you got the micro level. What I'm about to show you today stimulates the muscles in the neck region at these levels, at the macro and at the micro level. This is where the changes need to be done. And I believe this is one of the reasons why we have so many chronic patients walking around in our society, is that most of our intervention, at least in the therapeutic domain, are predicated on stimulating the muscles, but at the tissue level and at the organ level, they don't go to these levels. And this is where the change needs to be done. But in order for that to happen, the developer of the maneuver has to be thinking of what it is that makes up matter, that makes up life. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you a maneuver that's designed to stimulate the muscles at these levels. But before we do that, I just want to give you one more demonstration. Now, what I'm going to show you is how a muscle functions in the human body. Now, what I've got here is a demonstration, an illustration of a muscle fiber. Now, when you go to pick up an object, or just when you're standing, or when you go reach for something, the muscles have to contract. They have to contract, and they got to stretch. Now, when you do that, the muscle does this. Imagine this. This is a muscle bundle. When you go reach for an object, or you go reach for something in space, and you grab and you bring it towards your body, the muscle is contracting. It is stretching and it's contracting. It's stretching and it's contracting. Stretching and it's contracting. Now, this is important because what makes this happen is this. Now, the body has, remember, we're talking about at the molecular level, micro level, macro level. When the muscle contracts, stretches and contracts, stretches and contracts, what's actually creating this motion right here are proteins that literally act or functions as a little motor. I did a schematic here so you can appreciate those molecules that function as motors. Now, this is an illustration of this demonstration right here. These borders right here demonstrate this part right here. This part right here. This object in the center represents this area right here. Now, what makes your muscle stretch and contract are molecules that stick out of this area right here, the upper layer that makes up the muscle bundle, that sticks out from the layer itself and makes contact with this area, the inner fiber. I illustrated that with these marks right here. These are the little motoric molecules that create this motion right here. When your brain, when your will wants you to move a body part, these little molecules right here will actually pull this inner structure out and in, out and in. Now, that's important for you to understand is because in the cervical region, the muscles in the cervical region functions more not in a stretched position, but in a contracted position. Now, when you start developing pains in your neck, what's actually happening is your muscle fiber gets stuck in this shortened position. Now, the problem with the traditional stretching of the muscles in the neck is that they're all designed to stretch the muscle. But the problem is, since the fibers that make up the muscle bundle are stuck in a shortened position, what's literally the ineffectiveness of the stretch is because when you attempt to stretch the muscle is stuck in a shortened position, and the stretch does not cause the inner part of the fiber of the muscle fiber to come out because you're stretching the whole fiber itself. In order to loosen up that muscle fiber, you literally have to push the inner workings of the muscle fiber. You have to push it inward. It doesn't work by stretching it out. So literally what you're doing is that you're jarring the muscle fiber back and forth so it can resume its rested state, which is this state right here, which is the bottom illustration. This is the rested state in a muscle in the neck. This is the pathological state that most chronic neck pain sufferers are in. The muscle fibers are in a shortened position. So in order to extend it and create this resting state position, your stretch is a counterintuitive stretch. You do not need to stretch it out. What you need to do is you need to push it back in so these little molecules release the inner fiber so the muscle can reconstitute its resting state. Now I'm going to show you now what that maneuver is. It's very simple, and if you've been seeing our videos, you've already gotten to see what the maneuver is, because it's one of the maneuvers that's used to test for shoulder pathologies. But I'm going to show you now what the maneuver is, and I'm going to bring my assistant so she can help me. Anna, come right in. Now, here's my assistant Anna, and she's going to help us illustrate what that maneuver is. Now, again, the fascinating thing is that it works as a stretch, but it's not a traditional stretch. If you go on to YouTube and you see some of the videos out there on different types of stretching for the muscles over here, you'll see right away that most of the stretches are designed to stretch the muscle in an outward pattern. That doesn't work. The muscle is it's in a resting state. It's in a pathological state of shortness. The only way that you're going to be able to release this inner fiber from the outer fiber is if you actually push the fibers in. And little by little, you're just pushing it in, back and forth. You're giving it this motion right here. Once you do this enough and you will reestablish those molecules that create this motion, the muscle will resume its resting state. But you have to affect the molecules in between the muscle fibers. And that's what the traditional exercises do not do. That's why they are not effective. So I'm going to show you a maneuver that actually works at the molecular level. Now, it's very simple. Now, Anna's going to show it to you. This is something that you do whether your neck hurts you or not, because it maintains the muscles in the neck in a resting state. But if you're an individual that's had chronic pains, this is a maneuver that you should start doing right away. And you do it throughout the day. You do not have to do 1,000, you don't have to do 500. You do 10, 20 throughout the day. And it's very simple. Now, before I do that, let me show you. I put these marks right over here. Now, a normal upper quadrant, you should be able to see a concavity right here. There should be a little sink right here. It has to be concave. When this area right here is concave, that means that these muscles that make up all this area that go right into your neck are in a rested state. When you start seeing a little bit of bulging, I put these marks right over here so you can see them. Anna Anna is not a chronic pain sufferer. She does experience some neck pains every now and then. She's very young, but she's starting to develop some congestion or some shortening of the muscles in her neck. And you can visualize that by her losing this concavity right here. You start seeing a little bit of bulging. That's what these marks represent. You can see a little bit more bulging. Keep your head straight like this. You can see a little bit more bulging on the left than you do on the right. I don't know if you can appreciate that. I put the marks right over here. She has a little bit more bulging over here than she has over here. This is nothing. I've seen much worse cases than this in chronic neck pain sufferers. Now, she's starting to experience a little bit of shortening of her soft tissue, but it's not that bad. She can definitely do something about it. She's never done this maneuver, but she's going to start. Now, I'm going to show you what it is, and it's real simple. Now, what Anna's going to do, she's going to do the maneuver itself herself. Anna, you're going to be like this, and you're going to do like this. Your thumb is pointing up like this. Your elbow is bent at 90 degrees, and what you're going to do is you're going to raise your elbow up like this and let it come down. And keep doing that. Now, this is the maneuver itself. Keep doing it. This is the maneuver itself. Now, this is a stretch. Now, what's happening here is that you're not stretching this area, right? The muscles that make up your neck. You're not stretching it in the traditional fashion. You're not trying to extend the fibers out, because that is a useless effort to try to do, because you're not going to be able to pull those fibers apart. The only way that you're able to regain this resting state is if you go towards the restrictions, which is the muscle fibers inward. Keep doing it. What's actually happening here is this. She's doing this. She's jarring it free. She's jarring it free. Okay, relax. Now do it over here. Again, you're in this position here. Do it again. Now, when she does that, keep on. When she's doing this, this is a relative normal response. Keep doing, okay. Keep doing it. It's a normal response. Do you see how do you see how this area slightly rises? Okay, relax. Now do it over here. Do it again. Keep doing it. Stop. Alrighty. Now do it over here again. You see how she gets this area rises a little bit more. I don't know if you can get this, Carlos. It rises a little bit more. Oh, relax. Alrighty. Now, again, you stand straight. Now, again, remember, we made this observation. You don't have to bend your head. Keep your head straight. We made this observation. This area over here is a little bit more bulging than this area over here. Now, over here, do it again. Now, you see how it doesn't rise as much, because these tissues over here, relax, these tissues over here are in this position right here. They're more in a resting state, a normal resting state. These tissues over here are in a slightly contracted or pathological state. So when she's, now do it over here. When she's doing it over here, since some of these tissues are in a short position, she's actually doing this to them. If she does that enough, sooner or later, you can relax, this area will start appearing as this area does, because these tissues over here are going to be in a lengthened state. Now, let's just take a look at it. Now turn it and face this way. Let's take a look at it from the back. Perfect. Now, again, we've got these areas right over here, marked over here. Now, over here, now do it again with this one. Now, again, you can see. Alrighty, relax. Now do it over here. Again, you're seeing very little difference. Alrighty. Now do it over here again. 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 Keep on. You see over here, when she goes up, this area bunches up, because again, keep doing it. These tissues over here are in a slightly pathological state. It's in a shortened state. So effectively, as she's doing this maneuver right over here, she's loosening up that tissue. It's a reflex. You have to loosen those molecules that create this motion right here because they scar. So by doing this, she's actually moving the fibers relative to each other, but she's moving it in an inward fashion, not outward. As a normal, okay, relax, as a normal stretch would. If she was to go to a therapist, a manual therapist, and they will use traditional stretching maneuvers over here, it would be all for naught. They would not be able to dislodge the inner fiber from the outer fiber because the stretch is occurring at the tissue level, at the whole level. They'll be literally stretching the outer membrane, not the inner membrane, not the molecules that create the pathology. Thank you. You can sit over here. Now, again, this is the issue that we experience in the therapeutic or in the medical world. As we get to see what molecules do in living matter, we can start developing physical maneuvers that deal with the actual problems themselves. And that is one of the problems that we have in the rehab world, is that our traditional stretching exercises are that. They're traditional. They've been used for 50, 60 years, and we have not gotten to the next level. I believe that this is one of those maneuvers that does deal with the actual problems that you see in chronic neck sufferers, which is a dysfunction, not at the tissue level, but at the molecule level. So if anybody sees this video, if anybody has any comment, if anybody disagrees with this maneuver or maybe has some suggestions for us, please make your thoughts known at the video. And for anybody that watches this video, thank you very much.